I am your host, Danielle Mims. Welcome to Think Like a Kid, the podcast that helps parents and teachers stop guessing and start teaching the way kids actually learn. After working with hundreds of kids, I can promise you this: one-size-fits-all learning doesn't work. It's time to stop making kids fit the system and start shaping learning around the child. Each week, you'll get quick wins, creative ideas, and brain-based strategies to make learning hands-on and fun again. So whether you're in the classroom, the car, or halfway through your coffee, I am so glad you're here. Let's think like a kid. Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of Think Like a Kid podcast. I am Danielle, and I am so forever grateful that you are even here taking the time out of your busy day, because I know you have a busy life. You are probably a mom or a teacher. And thanks for just tuning in and listening. I probably put way too much time and thought into this first episode because I was like, how am I going to take something that I love so much and I'm so passionate about and wrap it into a first episode that gets my listeners excited to listen to the next episode? And I was like, this is turning into perfectionism again. I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to go on and share why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I started this podcast in the first place, why I became a teacher in the first place. Because if you are taking the time to listen, I feel like you deserve that story, and I owe it to anyone who's listening. So I really want this podcast to feel like we're just sitting and having coffee. And because this is truly what I do with my own friends, where we just kind of bounce ideas back and we talk about the way kids' brains work and different strategies and techniques. And I find what I learned so valuable. And all I want to do is really share and help as many kids as I can reach their full potential. I love teaching. I love children. I love working with other professionals and educators and parents who are like-minded and want to help kids thrive. So welcome, buckle up. I am doing this for you, and I will go ahead and tell you how I got started. I don't have some typical childhood story of always wanting to be a teacher. I wish I did. I honestly told people that story before in the past. Like I used to play, I mean, I did. Yeah, I played teacher in my basement, but it wasn't this thing where I knew I was going to be a teacher. I was destined to be a teacher. I honestly, if you want the real truth, I went to school for psychology and not just like to be a counselor. I wanted to work in a prison. I know it's really odd. I find it odd too. I'm still like a crime junkie, but I've always been fascinated by how our brains are all different, how they're wired, and what makes people unique. And it wasn't until I was 2 years into my psychology degree, and I was taking my childhood psychology classes, and I was learning about how childhood shapes everything, really, and how the brain works and how kids learn. And it kind of was like an emotional, light bulb moment for me, because school was never something I loved. It was actually pretty hard for me. And this class just was a full circle moment of just, oh, I was failed by the system. So that was the turning point for me of when I decided to shift and pivot into education and try to make a difference and help kids really be seen for who they are and individualize learning so that they could thrive. And I don't have some crazy dramatic story either about my childhood. I had a great childhood. I grew up in a great area. I had decent teachers, but I didn't thrive, right? I was what people call average, like in that happy middle, right? The she's fine kind of zone. So there was kids at the top of their class. That was never me. There was kids who severely struggled or had learning disabilities. That wasn't me. I was just like the she's fine zone, which if you've ever been there, or maybe your kid's there, that's actually kind of a dangerous zone, because no one really notices you. You're not failing. You're not thriving. You're kind of existing and just floating. And that was me. I mean, I stayed in that zone
all throughout I don't have one teacher that I could think of that could say, "Oh, yeah, that's Danielle. That was Danielle Norman," nobody. And it's not like no anyone was, like, mean to me or, like, gave up on me, but, like, no one cared to know who I was because I was just a body, and I was, um, kinda just going through the system. And I mean, I attribute a ton of my anxiety even to, I don't know, shout out to popcorn reading where you'd get called on and have to count your paragraphs and be ready to read in front of the class even though you couldn't really read. But anyway, that's where I stayed. I stayed at the average zone. And the hardest part isn't that this is a devastating story of that. It's what's devastating is that this is happening right now. It's happening to this day. I've seen it happen. I've heard it happen. It's going on right now. There are so many average kids that are invisible. There are so many kids who are gifted and have high IQs, and they're misunderstood and they're not challenged in the way that they need. So they're going to just lead to burnout and anxiety and depression and perfectionism. And then there's kids who are severely struggling and we're not getting to the root cause, right? We're just putting band-aids on things. So I learned quickly that I can't change the system, but what I can do is I can give as much information to teachers and parents, and I can try to do my part in helping give the supports and the strategies and the resources so that we can help kids have a better future than what we have. So I wanted every single one of my students when I became a teacher to feel valued. I wanted them to feel heard, to feel loved and supported. And I wanted them to feel that from me. And so that's what I did. I mean, when I graduated, I found my job and I taught my heart out. And that's what most teachers who get into the profession for the true love of teaching, that's what they do. I didn't have kids. I would stay there till the janitor left at 10 p.m. I would spend all my money at garage sales and buy everything for my classroom and my students because they don't give you anything. And I taught my heart out. And yeah, I had standards to meet, and a lot of the districts and guidelines were strict, and I had rules, but I also knew pretty early on after, you know, in the field that real learning with kids only happens if there's a connection. So a lot of people try to teach and teach on top of teach and correction and teach. And it's this vicious cycle of never really getting to true learning. And that's because the piece of connection is missing. And what I mean by that is really looking at every single child. And yes, there was one year I had 31 students. That's insane. Shouldn't even be legal, but it is. And you have to get to know each child, their passions, their fears, their what drives them, their learning style, how they bounce back from challenges, and you have to figure out, it's hard, but you have to figure out exactly what makes them tick so that you can play the part in giving them all the tools that they need in order to reach their full potential. Because every child is different. And if you are a mom or a dad of multiple kids, you know this better than anyone. I mean, I have 3 children of my own, same parents, same experiences, same a whole lot of everything. They are wildly different. Like, not just their likes and dislikes, but their sensory profiles, their triggers, their strengths, their challenges. They're so different. So we need to approach them in different ways, right? It's not always about being equal with them. It's giving them what they need in order to help them, not just survive, but thrive. And I guess that whole story of my why is what this whole podcast will be about. And that's where I got the name Think Like a Kid. I had so many names that I was going back and forth with, and my dad actually helped me come up with this name. We were bouncing ideas back of this is how I learn and coming from the kid's perspective. And it kind of just evolved to thinking like a kid. Because when you do that, when you take a step back and you put yourself into somebody else's shoes, which we all know is hard, a lot of adults lack that skill, but you think like a kid where they're coming from, holy beep, life gets so much easier because you're approaching things in a different way, not from your lens, but from the kid lens. And we're going to talk about all of it. We're going to talk about everything at a kid level, and I am always open to you reaching out and asking for specific episode topics, but I'm excited because I'm learning every single day. I'm always taking new courses and new trainings and staying on top of the research and the evidence. And I have my own kids now, so even trying it with them, but also what's worked with me in the past in the field. And I'm going to bring on some amazing guests so that you can have just as much information as possible. I want to keep these podcasts super short. I want it to be like, oh, I got a 15-minute drive. I'm going to pop this podcast on, grab something useful, and get on with my day. So my goal of every podcast is to really end it with a takeaway. That's something that you can actually do with your child or your students right away. So for today, I wrote down 3 questions that you can ask your child because these are very valuable questions. And if you just listen, like you don't respond back, but you just kind of like let your child talk and you don't try to, turn in any certain direction and you just listen, you're going to learn a lot. So here's 3 questions that you can do all 3, one of them, whatever you want. But the first one is asking your child, when do you feel the most loved? This is going to help your child explain to you their love language and whether they value independence or quality time or physical touch. And those are all like clues that you need to know. So just that simple question, when do you feel the most loved? And just listen. The second one is, what is something that grown-ups do that makes things harder for you? Don't give ideas. Just maybe repeat the question. This is going to build trust and metacognition. It's going to give you an honest view into their mind and let them feel safe enough to tell you. Number 3, what helps your brain or body feel calm again after you get upset? Right? Is it time? Is it space? Is it hugs? Is it a certain tool? Right? This is going to help build the calm down strategies. This is something that every kid needs to learn. Emotional regulation is not something that kids are born with. It's something that adults struggle with as well. So it's really important to just keep that line of conversation open with your child or your students and to just listen. All right, friends, we made it through the first episode. Again, thank you so much. Thanks for listening to my not so dramatic story, but of why I got started in the first place and why this episode is called Think Like a Kid. And we will be back with episode number 2.
Thank you for listening to Think Like a Kid. If this episode gave you an idea, a reframe, or a little win, the best way to say thank you is to share it with a friend or leave a quick review. It helps more parents and teachers find these conversations, and honestly, it means the world to me. Until next time, friend, keep meeting kids where they're at and keep thinking like a kid.